behind Stargate, it's been decided there's four.
First thing will be a static shot here, then
That's a question for Doug, right here. Get that. We're dying for that. I'm just learning all myself. Action bundle! Action bundle!
God!
Greg, Tom and Mark, let's do a little rehearsal. Let's get everybody off the bridge and then...
Get a little more out of this. It doesn't drop so low anymore.
he will come forward and we'll lift his. We will give him a stick like up like this. Right. And that will be the sign. Everybody comes forward. Okay.
1, 2.
Okay, lining up the last mark and then pictures up. Everybody clear, please. Thank you very much. Everybody clear. Right.
Like
I'll play cards. I'll play cards with you.
metal out. You see how this thing opens. You know? Then you show that.
When does that happen?
That's like what we shot yesterday. When you see them appear, they all have their weapons there.
This kind of revival, this retrospective of ancient Egyptian films, more epic film. And Charlton Heston was asked to comment on it. And he said it's very important to do these retrospectives because these kind of films can never be made again. They're simply too expensive. So we put the package together, we did artwork for it, we wrote the script 5 years ago. We put this whole proposal together and we took it to each student and said, we want to recreate the epic. And most people in town were interested in doing it. They just simply didn't believe it could be done for the budget we said. They said, you're talking about a $150 million picture. You're talking about a movie that's just not going to make any sense to do. And we said we thought we could do it for a third of that price. And we did. This movie came in on time, and on budget, and all the money is on the screen.
When we were in Yuma and we filmed there for some 7 weeks, we used over 16,000 extras, not on a single day, but cumulatively. And that's an enormous number of people to logistically move around, and particularly in the elements in which we were working, which was extreme heat, sand dunes, total exposure to the elements, and it was a nightmare. I'm glad it's over, and we survived it very, very well, but it was really hard, real difficult.
First day that I worked, and it was real hot. I asked somebody, I said, geez, it's pretty warm today. He said, yeah, it's 126. And I thought this is going to be kind of long and grueling. In all honesty, it was very, very tough on the crew because they were hauling equipment around those dunes, and they were hauling them long distances and stuff.
We spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on rimrock water and arrowhead water in order to keep a constant flow of water that was supplied to all the extras and our crew, our working crew as well. Much more slowly on sand. I mean, just physically, you can't move as quickly. You don't have the purchase on it as you do on concrete or tarmac. Yuma was chosen as a location for a variety of reasons. Most importantly, we needed a location that was going to really serve as the desert. and not being able to go to Morocco or Egypt and go to the Sahara Desert, Yuma being an hour's plane ride away from here was a very convenient location, and it also offered up visually exactly what Roland was looking for and what the script really demanded, and that was endless sand dunes and vistas of sand dunes. So Yuma was a fairly obvious place to do the film as we were based in Los Angeles. It became like a city. I mean, it was literally a city with tents, vehicles, portable bathrooms, catering facilities, and it literally was a city that serviced the entire production. And it was put together and disappeared in almost overnight when we were done.
I've done a few big shows in the past few years, but this one's a big movie. I had a crew of 50 working for me in Los Angeles in the construction end of this. And then I brought about 20 people with me to Yuma to dress these people, because we weren't quite sure how many we had, but we knew that every day would probably be over 1,000, and that happened quite often.
What was real important to us was to give everybody the feeling that we really cared about the working condition and the working environment, and I think that we managed to do that. I don't think I've ever been involved with a crew that had a better spirit and was as happy and satisfied to come to work every day. And everybody was really in very good mood, very good spirits, and I attribute a lot of that to Roland, who is responsible for creating the tempo. And Roland just has a tremendous positive attitude that becomes infectious.
Can I make a statement?
Please.
I'm tired.
Okay, John, I'm going to close this with you.
What we want to do is do a movie really from the heart. A movie we wanted to see. Something that hasn't been done in a long time. An epic film, like the Cecil B. DeMille type classics. And do it with a science fiction twist to it.
I haven't seen this movie before, which is one of the things that I was so attracted to when I became involved in it.
I had never read anything like this before. The thing that I found exciting about it, and also quite tangible, was although it has a sort of a science fiction aspect to the film, and it has an otherworldliness about it, it's very grounded in humanity. You know, very grounded in humanity. And that's what it ultimately is about. And I think that's the reason why I was able to do it.
The size of the film would indeed be analogous to what Cecil B. DeMille was doing. And I say that with utter humility.
When I read books, I never read science fiction books. Only when like somebody offers me or says, you should make a movie out of that. It's probably like because I started with my very first movie with a science fiction movie. And I got pretty, I really liked, you know, from that moment on, you know, that you can create your own world. You have to build a lot. I like stage, I like sets. I like that movies can create something which is not in reality there. That's the kind of thing which but I discovered it in doing my first movie, which was a science fiction movie.
Hey, you okay? You all right?
that it really was an idea that Roland had originally some 10, 12 years ago. So it's an idea that he's sort of been developing in his mind for a very long time. My understanding, anyway, is that when he became involved with Dean as a co-writing partner, that then Dean as well became party to the idea, and then they worked on it together and developed the screenplay.
Actually, 1928 came up because Roland and I were watching a documentary on a woman who was an Egyptologist who'd spent her life in the Valley of the Kings.
Within the context of this story represents a kind of enigmatic object or device that is discovered in 1928, and it's taken over by the military, who has some ideas that they are trying to perfect.
They've chosen him because a character who has nothing to lose can be a very destructive weapon. It's a bit like a terrorist who when part of his plan is not to escape, he becomes the sort of best and most difficult warrior of all to defeat.
Jackson!
Colonel Jack O'Neill from General Weston's. I'll be taking over from now on.
It took, however, 70 years, almost 70 years, for them to even begin to decipher the code and enter our character played by James Spader, who is a kind of wunderkind who figures it out. He figures out in 14 days what the military hasn't been able to figure out in years and years and years.
I think the most fun of the movie is not even our giant special effects or casts of thousands or huge sets. It's actually very little moments that James and Kirk play. In the script, the whole joke was James goes to eat the food, and it's really disgusting looking. He eats it, there's a long pause, everybody's waiting to see what he says, and he goes, tastes like chicken. All right, it's kind of an old joke, I threw it in. But James has to take it a step further. He looks at the guy, obviously the guy doesn't understand what he's saying when he says chicken, so he starts balking like a chicken. Like, bark, bark, bark. Well, this became a terrific moment. So later, in another scene, when they're trying to find James's character, and Kurt Russell can't communicate to the kids, one of the kids looks up and starts barking like a chicken. And goes, yeah, that's it, that's the guy, Chicken Man.
Like actually when everybody else is more serious than I am, you know, I honestly, you know, because I'm really a person who always says I'm not taking this too serious. I'm actually taking it very serious, but I think I would like, you know, this would be not me if I would not develop some humor about all that. And actually, I think James enjoys it, that I'm not such a, you know, like straight guy. You know, I'm more like, have fun with it, you know.
He loves to act. He loves the process of it. And he's also one who...
John Morris, come to first unit.
He likes to, I'd say, get as much out of his role as he can. Not leave any rock unturned or something that he might try or something he might want to discover about the character. He's very excited by the process. He really likes it. And it's always fun to be around that, and it's always it's inspiring at times, you know, to watch somebody be as excited as that about anything they do. I have enjoyed my time with all the actors, and especially with James, who I spent most of my time with. He's been a pleasure. He and I have shared a lot of laughs and discussed the movie as little as possible.
They're very different, and that's very interesting to watch. James, he's like intellectual and analyzing, and Kurt is very, you know, he's like joking a second before the action. A second, he's still telling me the story of something, and he goes to the scene, and it's a miracle. And it's just great to watch. And I think James is, you know, I feel great working with him. I work mostly with him than with Kurt. But I just, you know, I think I'm really lucky.
They really beat the bushes to find somebody that was right for that. I mean, they looked everywhere, and they found her, and she was just right.
I was working in a restaurant in New York, earning some money for the second year of school that I've been going to, acting school. A manager came in, and I didn't know she's a manager, but for me she was a customer, and I was coming to the table and reading the specials, and she cut me off in the middle and she said, "Come to my office tomorrow." She sent my tape to Roland, and without me even knowing about it, my tape with all my movies that I've done in Israel, and she got a call from him and that he wants me on the set right away. And a day after, I was shooting the most important scene in the movie for me.
Now, a scene out in the middle of the desert with 1,000 extras is still a scene, the same as a scene sitting on a couch talking to one other person in a small room. You know, I mean, you're still going through the same legwork.
The animal will go up, it will start to scream, you know, and yell.
Just don't touch its ear.
It will run over. And you guys are like here. And you guys have Okay, let's do it again. I want to have them a little bit different.
Back to one once again, everybody. Back to one.
The greatest joy of the movie is watching an actor take something that you brought up to a 2 and then take it to a 9, and then in editing you pump it to the 10.
They came a little bit too much in this direction, right? We sort of took the track. The one camera was okay, the other one was good.
Stargate is a terrific device within this story that creates for the audience and for the characters within the story a time warp. And And I think the concept of a time warp is always a fascinating possibility.
Just to be careful.
Because if you take anyone and place them out of their time as they know it, it creates a kind of a magical world for them. So it really is the doorway to another world experience, and within that experience comes the adventure that our characters inadvertently or unknowingly embark upon.
The Stargate device is simply to get you from one side of the universe to the other side of the universe.
Yes, sir. Record all information from the Stargate.
The medallion is simply to get you from downstairs in the pyramid to upstairs in the spaceship. Even though the size relationship of travel is vastly different, it's still the same concept. So we said, hey, we apply it here. And if you look through the movie, you'll see that this crossbreeding of set design, of the way rooms are lit, of everything is kept consistent. That's Walter, that's Roland.
It would probably be an impractical idea to think that one could do this film without the possibility, the technological possibility of digitally enhancing the images that we put up on the screen. And I think that's where the technology is going anyway. It doesn't matter what I think, that's where the technology is going. And Roland keys right into that because that's how Roland's brain works.
Sit down, Jackson. You got to keep in mind that we're not doing digital effects on this film to look like digital effects. Roland's strictly against anything that looks science fiction-y or very inorganic yet cool.
Roland showed me a long time ago, he took me through the art department and started showing me images that he was going to put up on the screen. And I've been around for a while and I've done this for a long time. And I was utterly surprised and amazed at what he was able to envision and imagine that he was going to be able to create with a compilation of the actual live footage that we shot and then combined with the digital, the computer graphic images.
So, like, one of the things that we're doing in that vein is the morphs. And we're morphing these helmeted creatures into human beings, and we're doing it in such a way that it's not an organic situation, but it looks like a mechamorph, a mechanical morph. So the goal there is if we do it right, people will go, who built those helmets? They're really cool the way they work. On the other end of the spectrum, we're doing the Stargate Effect, which is based on totally organic stuff. It's going to be the premier effect in this whole show, because that's the name of the movie, Stargate. And then the rest of the stuff that's supposedly transparent and seamless are crowd manipulation, scene manipulation, which would have traditionally been done with matte paintings and stuff like that. Adding pyramids into shots, and we're multiplying the crowds out so that instead of 800 or 1,200 extras, you're going to have 40,000 extras.
What I like about the computer thing, you can simulate rooms. Because you get a very good feeling very early, you know, how you can film a certain room. You know, the limitations, the good angles, the bad angles. So when you go into this room, you already know that this angle is not interesting, so you don't even try it. Or you know exactly what kind of lenses naturally are like the better angle. It's all like preparation work, which later you don't have to think. And a computer can simulate things you couldn't simulate otherwise.
The popular term these days is pre-visualization. You can determine what the film is going to look like in advance. And in the simplest possible terms, I draw a sort of simple comic book version of the action in the film, which communicates the director's ideas to the crew. The storyboard is the first place where the movie starts to happen, and you get a sense of the rhythm of it, and you get a sense of the action, and you get a sense of what the mood of the piece is going to be, and how it's going to cut together, and it's a way for everybody to get together on the project without having to expose a single frame of film. The goal in certain sequences here was to really try to see how scientific we could be about it, and actually create three-dimensional, mathematically accurate models of the sets in the computer, render them in full 32-bit graphics, and use them as backdrops for storyboards.
We invented a society of basically slaves, a slave society that lives on what this god and these godlike creatures give them. And so we were rather limited in our colors and our resources on what would be available on this planet also. So we had to take a lot of things into consideration before we started to design for them. I also had to take into consideration how long it would take them to get dressed in the morning with our crew, and so I tried to make a lot of it as simple as possible, while at the same time not looking like anything we've seen before, but being familiar in some respects.
Key words for those creatures actually were for me to be like impressive, scary, but also very elegant. Actually, the message is the thing that Roland had the most clear idea about. He was really looking for a creature which is very dirty, slappy, scary the first time you see it, and then once you get into it, appear to be a very nice creature. So that's where it started. The first concept was based on the regular horse. And Roland checked it out, looked at it, and thought the horse was way too small for that huge creature, so we switched it to the Clydesdale.
Patrick was like really interesting because, you know, I always said, you know, somebody who is creating the creatures, you know, should be, you know, really an artist. And I think like Patrick is a real artist. You know, his drawings are beautiful. You know, I got like 4 or 5 of his drawings, and I will hang them up on my, you know, in my house, you know, because they're really beautiful.
Well, 8000 BC was the toughest of everything that I did because the research material on that is almost nil. A few fragments of fabric and basically bones. So it had to sort of be up to our imaginations on what Northern Africans would be dressed like at that point in time. So we got a little creative with it and had fun with it. If an anthropologist took a look at it, or an archaeologist, I don't know whether he would think it was accurate or not, but if nothing else, I hope it's pleasing to the eye. We made roughly, I'd say, about 3,000 costumes, and we did that factory style. We designed a whole closet of different pieces that these people would own. And after that was assembled, then we used the ropes to give it sort of personality. And we wrapped them in all these strange different ways around their heads and around their necks and everything to sort of give it some oomph. But in the society, you had the group of elders, the elder women, the unmarried women, who were potential brides, and then you had the workers in the town, and then you had the workers in the mines. We used that circle concept, and you see it a lot in the robe, and all of his garments, also in the children, you see these circle motifs. And they hopefully have a little bit of Bugatti with a little bit of the future added to them. A lot of the beads, a lot of the embellishments, all of that stuff we had to make. There was really not a whole lot that existed.
I said to Joseph, this guy has to be the best dressed, most elaborate dressed. He has to look a cross between like Caligula and the Pope, and it must be spectacular. But do it like in certain colors. That is, it fits very well with the rest of the concept of the movie. And we had a color coordination meeting with the other departments And he went and came back with the layouts and designs, and I said, fine, do it.
Ra's way of keeping his power over these people is by using advanced technology, which, as Arthur C. Clarke has so rightfully pointed out, any advanced technology to native types is the same thing as magic. Everything about Ra is big. Everything about Ra is ceremony and pomp and circumstance. And if he could have music everywhere he went, he would. And that's how he awes these guys.
Here.
J turn.
It's a one-on-one fight between our hero and Ra's sort of ace henchman is a guard called Anubis, who starts off as a guard with a jackal's head. Kurt Russell has to battle him. So it's quite an old-fashioned, the kind of battle that John Wayne would have been doing had he been making movies now.
And action.
Midakwe, Mabaya, Ramate.
But modern Egyptian is actually a dialect of Arabic and was replaced several hundred years ago, the original language of Egypt. And ancient Egyptian is now, therefore, a dead language, and even more difficult in terms of reconstructing what it sounded like. Ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, which are phonetically based, as opposed to being just a purely one picture equals one word. It's actually words are spelt out, and then some other signs have a symbolic meaning that give you a clue to what the word means. And they only preserve the consonants. So it's like we have a kind of skeleton for each word. And figuring out what the vowels are is the tricky part about translating or transcribing the language into a spoken form.
What?
Typically, Egyptologists just throw in an arbitrary E in between the different consonants and let it go at that, because that's all we really need to do. So it was really interesting researching the reconstruction of what we call phonology of the language, how it really sounded, and even neater hearing the actors saying it, because I'm not an actor, so I can't quite rattle it off as well as, say, Nauri can, or Millie has beautiful pronunciation. Of course, being Israeli, that helps quite a lot too, because it's a related language, Semitic language.
The thing is that at the beginning I thought it's really easy, because it's like gibberish. It's like you don't care about the words, you care about what you mean to say. But there was one scene that I did with James that I had to say a couple of those words, and most of it's silence. I mean, especially not in English anyway, not in a language that I understand what I'm saying. And that was so hard, because all of a sudden you have to fill those words with meaning. So that's not really easy. And also, I just got last night like a whole monologue in ancient Egyptian. And if I can do that, I can do anything.
Nedjed? Nedjed? Neda. 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 Tio.
Tio. Tio. It's been really neat hearing it come alive, literally, right in front of me. Because normally it seemed a very remote kind of thing. You're doing a translation. Somehow it doesn't seem like a real language. But to hear people really
rattling it off like this and speaking it at a pace that, and with the vowels reconstructed, has been really neat and really brought the language alive for me.
Necer, neceru, ben neceru.
Nate, naturu.
I think what it does is it says, we don't think you're idiots. We think you can figure this out. We think you're going to have more fun getting involved and putting your brain to work rather than just sitting back and saying, okay, blow me away. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to make for a very interesting next generation of people.
The idea of this hieroglyph, it was to combine the Egyptian hieroglyphs and a future civilization. We have built an alphabet called the Stargate Alphabet that includes these signs, these hieroglyphs, these phrases, and these motifs. Here we have the king who has his queen who's not here now. Here we have the dog and the scarab and the palm. These hieroglyphs have all a meaning for us, and they all have a name, and their placement has also a meaning. This is the Ana router. It's one of those rare machines, there are 9 in the world. This machine can produce the job of 100 men in one day. Over here, we have still some parts of the sarcophagus. The sarcophagus is already at the Spruce Goose Dome. This is where the men will lay and be revitalized. These are parts of the sarcophagus too. These are molding of some parts that we have done, and they will wrap the sides of the sarcophagus.
It is called the sarcophagus. This is it's based on an Egyptian burial tomb, burial coffin, really. But this has a special ability to rejuvenate people.
Stand by. Voice. Okay, wings, go. Sides up.
This film was not made cynically. It wasn't like we sat down and said, wow, what a commercial concept, we're going to make a lot of dough. In fact, we know how risky this movie is. We know how difficult the concepts are that we're going after. We don't educate the people who watch this movie what the histories are of the theories of ancient Egypt. We're assuming you already know that. It was very important for me that when we were going to make this movie, it wasn't going to be something where the white man comes and frees all the brown-skinned people. So what we decided on very early was that knowledge is the ultimate power.
Yes, yes! Hats off! Give me my authority.
The Daniel character, the Egyptologist guy, he's the guy who sees through all this stuff. He doesn't know how any of this stuff started. He sees through it. He's the one that incites the riot, brings people back to their senses, and shows them that it's just technology. It's just a machine.
Well, I hope, though, that when people see this film, that they're turned on to the whole Egypt angle of the film. Mm-hmm. I don't expect people to run out and buy every Von Daniken or Zachariah Sitchin book and say, well, that's the gospel. But I would love for people to look again, to question it, to reevaluate everything we know. And maybe we'll come up with the exact same conclusion. But isn't that the fun of it? This is one of the last remaining mysteries on our planet. And it's so easy for us to take for granted, this is the history, this is how it was. But you know, things pop up that make you question it. They make you say, wait a minute. There is an actual lovely subversive message we have very deep in here that I hope people find.
I think that a particular credit has to be given to Mario Kassar, who really is Roland's responsible for what we're doing here, but Mario's responsible for Roland, and thereby Mario's responsible for this, and I just think it's important because here I am talking about the film, and Roland's out there directing the film, as we can hear all this stuff going on, but it was Mario's belief in an idea that made this picture happen. Ultimately, he's really the architect behind Roland's vision, and everybody needs to know that.
I like very much pre-production, and then I get very nervous about the shooting, and then the moment I shoot, I love shooting. I always say, I love shooting, this whole pre-production and shit. And when I'm in the editing room, I pretty much say, all that other, now the real movie making starts, I don't know, and then I always like want to never do it again. It's too, because it's really stress. Nobody sees that so much, Even like somebody like from the outside who's in a film crew never knows how much stress a director is under. Because I always understand like a director as the guy who is like responsible for the good mood, for the creativity, for being relaxed, not getting too tense. Because I think the result is better. I know that like some of my colleagues disagree, but I think a shoot should be fun. And but I'm like constant under stress, and I sleep very bad, and I have like these weird nightmares, and I'm happy when it's over. And then the worst part for me is then they test my movie and rip me apart, and that's like all like pretty tough.
Last one, Ken.
Very good. Okay.
It sells it, I don't know what it is.
I like to know any clue. A little bit of music, a very low slide. We have to ask for it. Shall we? It's good. And then like the camera plays down, and they hold the camera. And
I've enjoyed myself. I've had just a nice time, and I've had a great time with Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich, who are fun people. They're fun. Roland's he runs a fun set. People are I think, always, basically having a good time, and I think that's important for a movie. I like those experiences a lot.
I'd work with him again anytime, anywhere. I loved him. I just loved him.
Most people will let you go until they understand it, which is usually too far down the road before they go, no, this is wrong. So Roland's really good in that he can see something and he can make the jump across the imaginary bounds of imagination and go, no. Or, yes, this is exactly right. When he gets enthused about something, it's wonderful.
I think Roland's sensibilities bring everything that you see to this project. And this really was masterminded by Roland's imagination. And this is simply a manifestation of what Roland dreamed up and thought about and kind of directed in his own brain. And this is all, ultimately, this is the material extension of Roland's idea and Roland's imagination. And I am in utter awe of Roland for being able to have this kind of the magnitude of this film, the size of this film in his brain. I couldn't do that. I guess that's why I don't do what he does, but then he has to rely on someone like me to make it happen for him too.
With the camera always
Yes.
He stands like
battery
here, yeah?
Here.
They have two cameras. One,
I got a new one already.
two.
Thanks, I'm ready.
You will come.
It's just bad.
Skara, Alexis is the first, and on the right side, on his right side is Gianni, and the left side is. Where is he? I have to always look. Are you? Frankie, and then behind them are you two, and the sun people are like a little bit in the background. They're like in the background.
No,
yeah?
not in the shot.
Background action more. Yeah, and you guys will come as a group. There's a message button. We'll come up here. The middle is
is Alexis and like Frankie. And right behind them, you two guys. So it's a 5 group which comes like up here, like this, the rim, and then you stop here and listen, you know? And then all of a sudden there will be like this, and you wait, and there will be like, they make like a loud honk horn that you can hear it over the thing, and then you will make a sign, yeah? And you will keep going and towards the camera and pass it as close as possible. Yeah, on the right side of the camera.
Which means your left.
It's your left. No. Yeah, your left. No.
Yeah, over there. It is getting late, isn't it?
It is getting late, yeah.
Roll camera, please. And action!
Mankind's oldest mystery is about to become its greatest threat in the science fiction action-adventure Stargate.
What is this all about?
Translation. Ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs.
James Spader is Daniel Jackson, the archaeologist whose radical theories help solve the 10,000-year-old mystery.
Well, this should read, sealed and buried for all time. It's not door to heaven.
I think when Daniel first sees the Stargate, I don't think he has a clue what it is. I think he has odd rumblings about what it might be, and I think he has high hopes for what it might be. It goes back to that saying, you know, don't hope too much for something because you may end up getting it.
Condition red in the gate. Evacuate all personnel.
The Stargate itself works somewhat like a combination lock. There are a series of symbols written on the inner track of the Stargate that have to be aligned with a unique order.
Jackson has identified the 7th symbol.
It's much bigger and grander and more complex than he ever imagined, I think.
Beam's locked itself onto a point in the Kalium galaxy.
The Stargate, of course, is the object of conflict. Kurt Russell has his agenda, and it's a clandestine one.
He's a guy who has, in his own estimation, nothing really much to live for. Therefore, he becomes, I think, a much better weapon.
Spader, on the other hand, has kind of the universal agenda, and he's discovered something that's quite wonderful. He represents, I think, the curiosity of the audience.
I knew it.
What we find is that there is a culture there. And the culture is apparently ancient Egyptian.
I think when Daniel first arrives at this curious place, I think he is just voracious in his need for exploration and experience. And if it's at the expense of anything, that's fine and acceptable.
Your job here is to realign the Stargate. Can you do that or not?
I can't.
You can't or you won't.
Stranded millions of light years from home, Spader and Russell come face to face with the Stargate's creator, Ra, the Egyptian sun god.
The Stargate is a doorway to adventure. I mean, you walk through this ring and you end up millions of light years away.
Jackson, wait for me.
It'll take you somewhere, but you don't know if it'll bring you back.
What is that?
It's your Stargate.
Action!
Stargate, an invitation to adventure, a journey millions of light years from Earth. Interdimensional travel and meals provided. For James Spader, playing archaeologist Daniel Jackson was a chance to enter history.
Especially when you're studying ancient cultures, you know, I mean, you're studying history. Because you are studying something that you have absolutely no tangible, you know, relationship with.
Cipru? He's inviting us to go with him.
How you can be so sure?
Because he's inviting us to go with him.
He arrives at this place and all of a sudden he is living it. He's not just an observer. He is living this life, this historic life.
Your job here is to realign the Stargate. Can you do that or not?
I can't.
You can't or you won't.
Kurt Russell is Jack O'Neill, the mysterious Air Force colonel in charge of the Stargate mission.
Why are you here? Why did they bring you?
I'm here in case you succeed. He's a guy who has, in his own estimation, nothing really much to live for. Therefore, he becomes, I think, a much better weapon.
Shouty.
Shouty.
Yeah, I think I'm the only one who can pronounce the name. I mean, it took James a couple of, weeks.
For Millie Avital, playing the Egyptian maiden almost didn't happen.
We were about 3 days away from shooting the role, and we hadn't cast it.
I took this one video cassette, and it was like an Israeli movie with Millie in it. And immediately said, where is she?
First time I read the script was literally on the plane.
Her mother was Egyptian. Her father is Moroccan. After great success in Israel, she came here and started waiting tables. Said, if I can make it there, I can make it in America. And this is her first film.
Necheru? Necheru?
Nate naturu.
Nate naturu.
Nafi.
I think Sherry is very serious about Daniel. And it's beautiful because she's falling in love with him.
It's okay. It's okay, see?
Alexis Cruz plays Skara, the leader of a band of shepherd boys who attach themselves to the strange and fascinating newcomers.
His main idol is O'Neill, who's this tough hero, god, which is kind of, he's the leader of his group, and now he kind of sees a different way of doing it, but it's just as cool, and he's intrigued, most of all.
Ra, the malevolent and powerful sun god. Writer-director Roland Emmerich credits executive producer Mario Casar for his casting suggestion.
The first was the character was the old man. And like Mario all of a sudden says, Jay Davidson. And there were like 2, 3 more people in the room and it all hit us.
Traditionally, movies that try science fiction don't usually get the caliber of actors we've gotten with Kurt Russell, James Spader, Jay Davison. They're creating unique and very strong characters.
James Spader and Kurt Russell travel millions of light years from home in the science fiction action adventure Stargate.
I knew it.
For 2 months, cast and crew braved the extremes of desert shooting to create the harsh and alien world on the other side of the Stargate.
This is an undertaking the size of which I've never been involved with. It's a great journey, literally going to another planet.
Sand everywhere, on equipment, in equipment. Transportation is a virtual impossibility.
There was a fascinating material called GeoWeb. It's a honeycomb material. They actually used it in Desert Storm, and it's laid down in the sand, and it creates literally an instant road. We never would have been able to move around the desert without that.
My very first day on the set, the scale of the picture became absolutely clear to me. I was driven straight into the desert, into a series of sand dunes, where waiting for us were thousands of extras trailing out over, I'd say, 2 miles of the crests of these dunes. Every day was a new enormity.
The size of the film would indeed be analogous to what Cecil B. DeMille was doing, and I say that with utter humility. We used over 16,000 extras.
In the middle of a sequence where we're supposed to have thousands of extras throwing their fists and cheering, we suddenly got the wave. I don't think it'll play.
A constant supply of water kept the filmmakers from succumbing to the intense desert heat.
I asked somebody, I said, gee, it's pretty warm today. He said, yeah, it's 126. In all honesty, it was very, very tough on the crew because they were hauling equipment around those dunes and they were hauling them long distances and stuff. For us, it was kind of a party. My makeup man and I would get the opportunity to jump in a dune buggy and ride dune buggies around.
Heat, movement, and the occasional sandstorm were nothing compared to a challenge the filmmakers would face daily.
Tracks. When you first arrive at a sand dune, it's perfect, and there's those great little ripples, and it looks fantastic. The minute one person steps on it, you're done.
Back to one, back to one.
It's a very difficult process just to get any movie made. To get a movie like this made is, it's really it's an undertaking, and when you get it done, it's just an achievement just to have made it, just to have done it.
Kurt Russell and James Spader confront mankind's oldest mystery in the science fiction action adventure.
I knew it.
Stargate.
We've seen a lot of films where someone from another world or culture comes to us, but we haven't really seen a lot of films where we go to them. And Roland wanted to create a whole nother world, a whole nother environment, and yet familiar enough that it feels real.
What the hell is that?
This thing was the model for people who were left on Earth, which they kind of imitated. So we said it has to have very straight Egyptian elements, but has like a technical aspect to it, but not too technical.
Horus, god of the sky. Anubis, god of the dead. Creature effects supervisor Patrick Titopoulos was charged with bringing these ancient deities to life as worthy servants of the Egyptian sun god, Ra.
The three key words for those creatures actually were for me to be like impressive, scary, but also very elegant.
Elegance and size were the watchwords as massive sets sprang up deep in the sand dunes along the California-Arizona border, as well as other less likely places.
We're in the dome in Long Beach that used to house the Spruce Goose. This proved to be a perfect opportunity in order for us to be able to build the sets of this magnitude and house them literally under one roof. They are vast, positively vast.
We are in the main chamber of Ra's palace, which is set on the highest, most pinnacle of the flying machine, as we call it, or the space machine, which is shaped like a pyramid. And if the pyramid is that size, we're talking about just the very top part, so you can tell the scale of the picture just by this alone.
I like stage, I like sets. I like that movies can create something which is not in reality there.
Costume designer Joseph Perot created an elaborate wardrobe of strange and beautiful garments for Jay Davidson's character.
I said to Joseph, this guy has to be the best dressed. He has to look a cross between like Caligula and the Pope. And it must be spectacular.
Every single thing, every single bead, every single scarab, every single ornament, throughout most of it was designed to just take it off, to make it look Egyptian but not.
I think films promise things to audiences. Well, we promise basically one thing: spectacle. The Stargate is a doorway to adventure.
Roll camera, please. And action!
Stargate. When writer-director Roland Emmerich decided to combine science fiction with the mysteries of ancient Egypt, it came as no surprise when the crew nicknamed him Cecil B. DeMille.
When I was like in film school, there was like a whole wave of books and documentaries about like the pyramids, about alien visited Earth, you know, they jump-started our civilization.
Here's a press article which proves that we were right, you know? You know, it's like the pyramids were upside down and were landing pads for spaceships.
And I thought already then, you know, it would make a big, great adventure movie.
I think Roland's sensibilities bring everything that you see to this project. I mean, this really was masterminded by Roland's imagination.
You know, you see how the thing opens, you know? I really like that you can create your own world. I like stage, I like sets. I like that movies can create something which is not in reality there.
It's nothing. Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Don't look at the beam. Don't look at the die.
Don't look directly in it or let this thing hit your eye. Even then, it's like,
This business gets more dangerous every day.
I've enjoyed myself. I've had just a nice time, and I've had a great time with Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich, who are fun people. They're fun. He runs a fun set. I think that's important for a movie. I like those experiences a lot.
I walked away just admiring him so much, you know what I mean? I just, and having it. Have you ever seen his feet, though? I mean, he's got the strangest feet. Did you ever see his feet? Really? Well, most of the time that we were out in the desert, he was wearing big, huge boots and stuff, you know. But, I don't know, I mean, maybe you should cut the camera on this, because I don't, boots off to shake some sand out of it, and I couldn't, I mean, I found myself staring, I couldn't help staring, but he has, are we still running?
He does this weird thing that I've never, ever seen before. He'll kind of perch in his chair and watches the monitor.
There's something in his eyes. Very weird. Very weird.
He's not really German. He actually comes from...
He smokes constantly, you know, something like 5 packs a day, you know. And it's amazing. He doesn't seem to have a normal air intake.
Well, come over here. Look at that. What do you think this is? Look those points, look my foot. And cigarettes. I mean, this tells me something. That's where I got my inspiration. That's all I can tell you. Check it out.
There is a great deal of rumor on the set that you are, in fact, an alien.
I think we should stop this interview here. You know, it's like, yeah, it's better.
Anyway, next time, if you interview him again, next time you speak to him, just inadvertently try and somehow, I don't know, compare shoe size or something like that, but try and get him to take his shoes off, because he has the most amazing feet. Irregardless of that, he is, I'd work with him again anytime, anywhere. I loved him. I just loved him.
The character's teenage son has accidentally shot himself, killed himself. It's quite obvious that the relationship between he and his wife has been, you know, damaged severely, and he personally has been damaged. And to the extent that he's almost suicidal. From that point on, drawn into this mission, as it were, but he remains, for the most part, through the picture, a guy who has, in his own estimation, nothing really much to live for, making him, I think, mysterious as well as, you know, fairly dangerous. The first day we were out, I remember the first day that I worked, and it was real hot. I asked somebody, I said, "Gee, it's pretty warm today." He said, "Yeah, it's 126. And I thought this is going to be kind of long and grueling. In all honesty, it was very, very tough on the crew, because they were hauling equipment around those dunes, and they were hauling them long distances and stuff. For us, it was kind of a party. Dennis Lidgard, my makeup man, and I would get the opportunity to jump in a dune buggy and ride dune buggies around. And when we were inside there, he's trying to get to a nuclear bomb, and he can't get to it because of the size and power of this other person, and he's got to use his wiles to be able to try to do it. And you know, the hope is that, given that this character is who he's been throughout the movie and suicidal, he may lose, because it may not make that much difference to him whether he loses or wins. But I think that's again where the physical acting of bringing somebody's humanity to the fore and getting an audience to go, "Oh God, I hope he makes it." If I go see this movie and I watch, you know, a 5 o'clock Saturday afternoon audience cheer, or ooh and ah, or gasp, then I will have done my job as someone who took a character and physically acted it out.
What is the Stargate? I think when Daniel first sees the Stargate, I don't think he has a clue what it is. I think he has odd rumblings about what it might be. And I think he has high hopes for what it might be. There's that saying, you know, don't hope too much for something because you may end up getting it. When he first arrives at this curious place that he and the Colonel are transported to near the beginning of the film, I think when he first arrives there, I think he is just voracious in his need for exploration and experience. And if it's at the expense of anything, that's fine and acceptable. And then that changes. It's a very different thing to study something and to have that sort of distanced objectivity that you have in the study of something, especially when you're studying ancient cultures, you know, I mean, in studying history, because you are studying something that you have absolutely no tangible, you know, relationship with, you know. And I think he arrives at this place and all of a sudden he is living it. He's not just an observer, he is living this life, this historic life. And a life that he has studied. And he's living in it. And I think it's sort of, his experience on the planet is tremendously visceral. When I had never read anything like this before. The thing that I found exciting about it, and also quite tangible, was, although it has a sort of a science fiction aspect to the film, and it has an otherworldliness about it, it's very grounded in humanity, you know, very grounded in humanity, and that's what it ultimately is about.
The inspiration is like pretty much like the fact that like when I was like in film school, there was like a whole wave of books and documentaries about like the pyramids, about alien visited Earth, you know, they jump-started our civilization. And even I don't believe so much in it, but I always thought it's a great theory. It's one of these theories which you can think, and even some people like religiously believe in. And I thought already then, you know, it would make a big, great adventure movie. It's actually that the idea behind it, and it was a long process. We said, okay, this thing was the model for people who were left on Earth, which they kind of imitated. So we said it has to have very straight Egyptian elements, but has like a technical aspect to it, but not too technical. Yeah, for me it was like, first of all, it was like, from the very beginning I said to the producers and to everybody, I want to have an interesting casting. And interesting, I mean not the obvious. Yeah? And I think, you know, for example, James Spader is not a person you would, you know, think first when you think about a movie like that. He does very classy, very like a lot of political, a lot of like very interesting projects, but you would not say he plays in a big epic science fiction. And you know, and what he does actually, he's very inventive and is a very good actor, and he gives this part, you know, and this character a certain dimension he wouldn't have, you know. And you know, Kurt, you know, it's like simply one of these actors who are like so sympathetic, and so like the people love them so much. They're very good in playing people who you can't make out, who have a bad side to them, because you never lose the audience with somebody like Kurt Russell. You can make him pretty much like the bad guy who turns around at the end and is good, and the people never say, I don't like this guy anymore. They will always come around because there's a natural sympathy coming from him. We milled around a lot of, the first was the character was the old man. And then I felt it was too much a cliche. And because when I started to casting it, there's like a Sergeant Gilgud and you know, all these like people and which are great actors, but I had the feeling it's like a cliche. And then I said it should be somebody younger, like somebody which is like really hasn't been there. And like Mario all of a sudden says Jay Davidson. And there were like 2 or 3 more people in the room and it all hit us.
Roland Emmerich's groundbreaking film, Stargate, an alien race travels across the universe, gathering slaves for a mining colony on a faraway planet. For many centuries, people have wondered if Earth really was visited by extraterrestrials. And today, there are those who believe they have proof that aliens did, in fact, come here. One such believer has traveled around the world, gathering evidence of alien visitation, and his findings are remarkable. This is his story. Erich von Däniken was born in Switzerland in 1935. Educated at exclusive private schools, he had the chance to meet students from all over the world. Curious and inquisitive, he developed a desire to travel to the world's most mysterious locations.
I was educated in a boarding school, and one of the friends in my class was an Egyptian. He had a rich father. At that time, this was still King Farouk's time. And together with him, I went for the first time to Egypt. We took a ship from Marseille, arrived in Alexandria. There, some servant of his father picked us up, and I saw the first time the Great Pyramid.
The Great Pyramid is 450 feet high and 756 feet long on each side. Incredibly, no one side is more than 8 inches longer or shorter than any other. It is also perfectly oriented to the 4 points of the compass. Von Däniken wondered how such an engineering marvel was possible in ancient times.
You are just impressed. You say, how is such a thing possible?
Von Däniken's fascination with the pyramid inspired him to learn as much as he could about the world's most mysterious sites. For years, he studied ancient history, primitive art, and pored through the world's spiritual texts. But as his research progressed, he started to notice signs and images that seemed unusual, strange. Carvings of beings wearing what appear to be astronauts' helmets. Ancient representations of mysterious flying devices from China and India. Von Däniken wondered, were these images of ancient astronauts who came to Earth? And if so, why? In 1966, von Däniken published his groundbreaking book, Chariots of the Gods, in which he claimed that we are surrounded by evidence of alien visitation. To begin, von Däniken shunned the belief that the pharaoh Cheops built the Great Pyramid.
According to Egyptian historians, the Great Pyramid was constructed before the Great Flood. The gods descended from the sky. The most intelligent of our forefathers, according to ancient Egypt, was called Saurit. These teachers from heaven taught him how to write. They dictated him books. Then they told him that the Great Flood would come, destroy mankind. Now Saurit impatiently asked that they would permit him to construct a building, because he wanted to put in this building all his books. So Saurit constructed the pyramid. He made many small rooms in there, and in these rooms he put his books. And by the end he made the pyramid waterproof by covering all the stones with another layer of stone. So this is Arabian history. In our Western world, nobody believes a word of it.
Researcher Georgios Tsoukalos agrees that the pyramid was not built by Cheops.
The greatest accepted theory today is that Cheops built the pyramid in 22 years. If I were a tyrant, which Cheops is said to have been, wouldn't it be obvious that every square inch of the insides and the outside of the pyramid would have my name plastered all over it? There are no inscriptions, no hieroglyphs inside the Great Pyramids. All the walls are blank.
Inspired by his findings in Egypt, Von Daniken traveled to Mexico, where he discovered that many of the ancient ruins are also pyramids.
The first time I was in Mexico, I was of course in Teotihuacan, which is just about 50 kilometers away from Mexico City. And it is an incredible, impressive archaeological site with huge pyramids.
When Von Daniken studied the arrangement of the ancient buildings at Teotihuacan, he made an extraordinary discovery.
All the buildings on the main street of Teotihuacan are not standing there in coincidence, but they are a model of our solar system. It really turns out that Teotihuacan is a small scale of our solar system, including the planets Uranus, Saturn, and Pluto.
But Pluto was not discovered until 1930. How did the ancient architects of Teotihuacan know of its precise location within our solar system? Von Daniken believes that aliens incorporated the astronomical information into the sites so that we would have to question how it was done.
And that's exactly what they wanted to do. They do it in ruins, they do it in old traditions, in holy books, so that the future generation, thousands of years in the future, must come up with the question, have we been visited by beings from outer space? And that's the point where we are.
All of these monuments, the pyramids of Giza, Stonehenge, Teotihuacan in Mexico, all of these monuments are signs. They are messages. Messages for a generation who has eyes to see and a brain to think, and who has the knowledge to decipher the message.
In the Mexican city of Palenque, Von Daniken discovered an image that, to his eyes, offered even greater proof of alien visitation. Discovered in 1949, this ancient tomb is covered by a large stone tablet. The engraving on the cover seems to show a figure seated inside an unusual kind of flying device, wearing what some people interpret as an astronaut's helmet.
On this tombstone, you have an incredible engraving. There is a man sitting, bending forward, almost like a motorizing cyclist. He uses his hands to manipulate control. Directly on his nose is something like a mask.
Were our ancestors showing us a device that alien visitors used for their journey to Earth? Flying machines similar to those we have invented thousands of years later? As we begin our exploration of space, are we repeating an event that already occurred thousands of years ago? But perhaps the most thought-provoking of the world's ancient sites are the Nazca Lines of Peru. Ground carvings of such enormous scale that they can only be seen from above.
We have been flying with a small aircraft over Nazca, and it is extremely impressive. First you have figures of fishes, monkeys, apes, spiders, and these things, but of such overdimensional size that you can see them only from the air. The second thing you see are lines, but the longest of it is 23 kilometers long.
How did these lines get here? Von Daniken believes that the oldest lines were created by spaceships as they glided over the desolate landscape.
Of course, their flying machines left traces behind, like a wagon would leave traces from its wheels behind.
Von Daniken believes that the early Peruvians then reinforced the lines so that future generations would know of their ancestors' visitors. But what about the mysterious animals? What was their purpose?
Later on, a priest may have a good idea. He may suggest, well, why are these beings not returning? Why are they not coming down? Well, we have to show them that we are here, that we have sacrifices for them, and now in the midst of the lines, they start to make gigantic figures.
Why would an ancient civilization create carvings that could only be seen from miles above? Von Daniken is convinced that extraterrestrials flying over the Andes Mountains were the first to admire these works of ancient art. From the world's largest pyramids to the smallest ancient carvings, Von Daniken believes the message is clear. aliens were once among us.
There is an old promise given by the extraterrestrials to our forefathers that in a far future they will return. And I'm absolutely confident they will return.
All of these ancient accounts, all of them promise that these extraterrestrials will come back. And they will. The only question is when. Will they come back tomorrow? Will they come back in 100 years? Nobody knows.
The universe is filled with an incalculable number of stars, each functioning as a sun with its own set of revolving planets. In this infinite universe, can we really be certain that Earth is the only planet ever to have sent a mission into space? In Stargate, the aliens are evil, turning human beings into slaves. But Von Daniken's theory is that our extraterrestrial guests were probably very different. If there really was a Stargate, he believes that they came instead to teach us and even help create our planet's greatest wonders.